Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green and you're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. In today's video, I'll address the elephant in the room. Why is the U.S. targeting Russia with U.S. sanctions? What's the real reason? Who and what is the target? What's the chess move? Is it really just Russia, or do Western interests, the U.S., and namely Israel, have their eye on another prize? And how does this whole geopolitical mess shake out? You know, people have been tiptoeing and skating around over the past few days, weeks, and months the real reason that the U.S. dollar is rising. Isn't that interesting? Even Peter Schiff mentioned it this morning on CNBC, but kind of tiptoed and skated around it. Why is the U.S. dollar rising? And namely, the reason for that is it's entirely being artificially manipulated by the Federal Reserve. Again, our favorite criminal, our favorite culprit. And it's engineered to do one thing: crash commodities and crash oil prices, to crash Russia. But Russia isn't the end game. They're just a principal player in this whole BRICS nation mess. Now, of course, Russia strengthening ties with China and other BRICS nations, moving away, signing agreements, and moving away from the petrodollar. Again, the U.S. dollar has been priced in oil for years, and that drives the entire global economic system at the moment. But that is all changing. And the United States, insolvent, bankrupt, with over $18 trillion in debt, doesn't like that. And it's one of the reasons we're meddling overseas, killing people in places like Iraq and Syria, propagating brand new wars, continuing wars from the Bush years, etc. The United States doesn't like that. So in order to corner Russia, to corner the Russian vodka-drinking bear, they are artificially, through the Federal Reserve, manipulating the U.S. dollar, and it has been on a steady rise and has since crashed commodities as a result. And Russia, backed into a corner, their economy, their financial system is in a panic, the ruble collapsing overnight. But is Russia the real target? Is Russia really what the West has their eyes on? You know, there's been a lot of commotion in places in the Middle East lately, like Syria, if you haven't noticed. In fact, over 6 months ago, I predicted that Obama would launch a war there. And it's exactly what he's doing now. He's bombing the shit out of Syria and also Iraq, what they call the Levant, which is in utter chaos right now. And the fabricated boogeyman, the new one, because Al-Qaeda supposedly is dead now, and it's now just ISIS or ISIL or any other fabrication of a name that CNN wants to play with when they're not race baiting the Ferguson riots. All of this is engineered to position Putin so he's so focused at home with Russia's own problems, their own economic collapse, their own problems with their financial system, a collapsing ruble, that he doesn't have time to negotiate what's happening in Syria. Remember, Russia and Putin are a friend of the Bashar al-Assad government. Remember, not too long ago, just a few months ago, Western interests tried to fabricate one of the largest false flags in recent known history with the Ghouta chemical sarin gas attack. They tried to position Bashar al-Assad as the culprit, as the bad guy, as if it was his government that attacked his own people, so that would promote the West to oust him. Of course, none of that makes sense. Bashar al-Assad winning the war would have no reason to position himself and his government in that way to justify a Western attack on his own country that would only oust him. There's no incentive to do so. But that giant false flag turned out to be just that, false, entirely engineered by the West and Western interests. And the same coup d'etat strategy that continues over and over through revolution and re-revolution, backed by the U.S., Israel, and Western interests, whether or not it's Egypt, it's the Arab Spring protests, or it's Ukraine with Russia, or it was an attempt in Syria. But see, now with Putin, or at least this is the hope, with Putin backed into a corner, so focused on Russia's problems internally, he won't have time to deal with Bashar al-Assad. And that will make it easier for the U.S. federal government and Western interests, namely Israel, to topple Bashar al-Assad's government and send the entire Levant, which makes up Syria and Iraq, into utter chaos. You know, let the gang members battle it out themselves. Let them kill themselves off. Whatever left over of the al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, ISIL, let them kill each other. And while they're working on that, while the Middle East is in flames, Israel and the United States will target their true and final destination, the real enemy, the real reason the U.S. is targeting Russia. Iran. Their nuclear program and the Iranian government has always been the target of not just Israel, but the United States and all interests that back up the West. That is the real reason the U.S. dollar is being manipulated higher. Commodity prices, as a result, are crashing. Oil is dropping under $60 a barrel in WTI and Brent crude. The Saudis, which are in cahoots with the West, are allowing this to happen. Not only are they accomplishing a giant geopolitical chess move right now, but the Saudis, for example, twofold win for them. They're also putting pressure on shale production and drilling here in the United States of America. It's killing two birds with one stone. Again, Russia, a target. Of course, the BRICS nations, a target. Of course, China, the real Cold War, a target. Of course, the petrodollar, the target. The rising East, a target. But also Iran, the next target in this geopolitical game of war, of world war. It's exactly why President Vladimir Putin will retaliate, I think likely, with internal technological attacks here in the United States of America, similar to what we saw with the engineered flash crash in May of 2010. Whether or not this is a computer virus or this is hackers affecting, infiltrating U.S. systems and U.S. financial markets, that's where they can really hit us in the balls. Expose the illusion for what it really is. Expose the Federal Reserve. Expose how baseless this super leveraged derivative balloon is. And let it all come crashing down. Let it all collapse. Show Americans how strong this recovery really is. You know, the Fed's debating QE5. I think, soon to be announced, in my opinion. They've already had one, they've had two, they've had three, they've had Operation Twist, which was 4, they've had what they called Pseudo 4, but is really 5. So, excuse me, we're actually maybe potentially hitting 6. And they still haven't risen interest rates. And deflation now, they argue, is the real threat. With commodity prices crashing, with oil crashing, with all this pressure being put on the U.S. economy. And inflation expectations tapered, according to the Federal Reserve. All of this house of cards is going to come crashing down. This war will escalate. Russia will retaliate. And the next chess piece and the next move, my friends, is Iran. Get it out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor, Amerigold.com.